Well, Andy,
Hello.
it's spring out. The ice is just breaking out of Shamong. Look at that. It's
Melting before our eyes.
and we thought it would be really good to do not a spring trip planning, just a trip planning, right?
Yeah.
I mean, right now it'd be great to do a planning because it's spring. I mean, I don't know about you, but I don't sleep at night. I'm just looking at the maps all the time. Maps all the time.
Yeah, where are we gonna go?
Yeah.
Where are we gonna go?
And I got an idea, and then the next day, no, that's not good.
Yeah.
I got another idea, no, that's not good. So I did ask a bunch of people on social media, like send us your questions. Your expertise is here. We're having tea. Cheers. Too early for whiskey right now.
Look, I got a Golden Girls mug.
He is a golden girl. All right, so I got tons of questions. I got in 3 categories. There's way too many questions. So we're gonna start off with choosing a route, how to choose a route, and stuff like that. Then we're gonna get into some gear, and then just some silly stuff people ask us, right?
Sure.
All right. So we're gonna start off with Rich Sharp. When planning route, how do you calculate travel rates in order to estimate daily distances? Example, kilometers paddled per hour, how many portages, that sort of thing.
Okay.
All right. So how I calculate it, I'm not sure if you're the same. I calculated that the average paddler goes 12 to 20 kilometers a day, which is a huge separation. But it all depends. Portaging, are you fishing, that sort of thing. How difficult the route is, are the portages cleared. But 12 to 20 is a good average. So if we get on the water.
For flat water.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we're not going down a raging river because that's like 30, 40 kilometers.
Right.
Well, the way you paddle would. Yeah. But yeah, and why there's such a big difference, 12 to 20, depends what happens in between and depends what kind of paddler you are. Now the average paddler goes 2 kilometers per hour. Like if you're fishing 1 hour, if you're marathon 5 hours or 5 kilometers per hour. So what do you think? Is that accurate or?
No, that's a great couple of kilometers per hour, and you can probably do better, do worse, depending on the wind and other conditions. But that gives you a good rule of thumb.
Yeah, good rule of thumb. All right. And so, Evan, actually the guy that designed your label for inside of your map case.
Yeah.
I would love to know how you go about choosing a canoe route.
Hi, Evan.
Hello.
Well, that kind of loops back to one of the very first questions you should ask yourself planning, and that's, what do you want out of a canoe route, a canoe trip? Do you want relaxation? Do you want exploring new areas? Excuse me. Do you want to introduce maybe new paddlers to the sport? Like, there's all these different goals that individuals can have. So focus on thinking about that first. What do you want really to achieve out of your canoe trip? And not just you, but your full party.
Yeah, that's big, because I remember going on a trip in Algonquin. We always went to Algonquin to go trout fishing, and so therefore, we're not going as fast because we're fishing along the way. And some new guy showed up because some guy bailed, and of course we should have asked what his,
reason to
be, right? And so we get to the first rapid and we start fishing. He goes, "Guys, I don't fish." And we're like, "Why are you here?" And he was bored out of his skull the entire trip.
Yeah.
Right? He shouldn't have been there, to be quite honest. So yeah.
Yeah. So then once you've focused on, like, if you're going solo, well, it's easy to sort that out. If the larger the group, the more perspectives you've got to try and land the goal of the canoe trip. And you might actually have different sections. This part of the trip is satisfying the need for relaxation. This one for exploration. This one for fishing. This one for great campsites or something, But when you get a beat on that, that's when you start looking at, what routes are out there, and this is where you got to do your homework, that check those boxes as best as possible. So.
Yeah, and to find out information, it's so much easier now than when we were young. I mean, in the old days, we have some stuff here. Like in the old days, we had, well, this is not that old, but we got pamphlets of this. But we started off with books like this.
This is from the 80s, I think.
Yeah, oh my lord. But remember these? from the library.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
This Nick Nichols, actually the first to document canoe routes in Ontario. Then the government, Ontario Parks, did theirs. Well, actually M&R at the time, they did theirs. And what you did is you went through here and you looked at a route, and then you actually sent away to ask for a pamphlet to be mailed to you.
Yeah.
My lord, do I have pamphlets? These things, and then you got these mailed to you, and a letter, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
And
Came from the district manager.
yes,
Thank you for writing with your request.
and it was a typewriter. Typewriter. My lord. And then you went into, Howard Wilson's books. He was one of the first, actually, maybe even before Nick Nichols, to actually document canoe routes. So you look at this old, gosh, we got a whole bunch of stuff here. That's his new one.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, so that's just released, and that is the 12th edition. Where's the other old one? I got the old one somewhere. That's the 12th edition of Tamami Canoe Routes.
Yeah.
So, kind of cool. But here's some gems. You don't even know about this one. I got this somewhere. Where I got it. It's put together with a screw. But these are all Sudbury Canoe Routes. Right? Like, where did I get that? I don't know. Picked it
Oh,
up.
yeah. The tourist associations for different geographies would put these together often in the old days.
Yeah. And I can still get some canoe routes from there.
Yeah.
But also books like this,
Oh,
But
yeah.
remember, this book, $50 book, but this is a gem, right?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like $125.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. But it's covering a huge swath of northern Ontario that is really difficult to get information about.
Yeah. So you got books, pamphlets and stuff like that, but now you also got websites like MyCCR is still around. That used to be the thing at lunchtime during work. I'd be, I gotta go to MyCCR and see what people are talking about. Then there's Canoe Adventure or the Algonquin Adventures. There's forums. There's Boundary Waters Forum, a whole bunch of forums, and you get information from those people.
Yeah.
So things have changed. There's so many routes though, right? So like, how do you choose? I don't know. And then you have maps now, like good maps, right? You got good maps.
Yeah.
Whereas before we just had
Really
topos.
basic or none at all. Yeah.
Yeah. If you look at the topos, like here's what we would always do: is we do the route. And I was working on guidebooks at the time too. You know what? I don't even have my books here. Top 70 canoe routes. You think I would have that in the pile there? Because I'm a good promotion person. Yeah, I'm a good salesperson. Yes, I have a bunch of guidebooks. But yeah, there's maps like this we would bring. And this is one of our old trips where we camped, where the portages were. And basically, we didn't know where we're going. We would just, okay, Kevin. Yeah, I'll paddle while you just keep writing down and taking pictures. Do nothing.
Oh yeah. Back to that first question of how fast you can go. Well, that depends on whether someone's contributing to the paddling or not, and just writing things down all the time,
No recollection of that event.
or taking video of, oh look at me, folks, I'm in the wilderness.
All right, so Matt Van Dingen, I don't know the guy's name. Planning on an Algonquin trip with young kids, 5 to 11. Would love route recommendations or max portage advice. So you have 3 children. You went paddling with them with a 110-pound canoe. You go first and explain this one.
Well, you want, depending on, as the kids get older, they get more participatory in the trip itself. When they're really young, they're not actually helping you paddle, so you want to minimize paddling when they're really young and maximize campsite time. And because the younger kids love portages, they love the campsites. Paddling's boring for them.
Yeah.
But as they get a little older, and they're carrying stuff, they're helping paddle, you want to keep them active, but mix it up. So some portages, some paddling. Again, not so much on the long paddles, but also if they're a young person, say in the bow of a canoe helping an adult, you want to stay away from too big a water where it will kick up and get too breezy or too bouncy, too wavy for them. So smaller bodies of water, and in Algonquin, you can find a lot of that along the west side of the park. So entry points 2, 3, 4 along which are Rain Lake.
Ralph Bice.
Yeah, Ralph
Yeah.
Bice, which is that's through Hambone and Magnetawan entry point, Tim Lake entry point. Those have some good loops that you can do that will have a mix of smaller portages. Might be a longer one in there, but that's okay for the kids to give them a bit of exercise and you build them up to
Yeah.
try not to do the longer portage first. Try and do that a little later in the trip. But that might be where you want to have a look for getting the younger, youth, teenagers out there.
Make them part of the trip for sure, and guide them as opposed to be the parent and look, I can do everything. You actually gave me a huge advice when I had my child. You just said good luck, because you're going to carry a lot of stuff and you're going to be a lot slower and less adventurous. But campsites with beaches, not on a high cliff face. So we used to go to Chinnakuchi a lot, Matagami, Donald Lake, Booth Lake in Algonquin, Manitou, North T in Algonquin, that sort of thing. Lots of beach sites in that area. So beaches were always a big thing.
Yeah. I mean, you got to think about the hazards as try and minimize that. You're right, if you can. Sometimes you can't, but
Yeah.
But that's where you're keeping an eye on the crew to make sure that whoever falls off the cliff, you just go get them later.
Kids these days. Well, what was it? Rock Lake and McCraney? No, I can't. There's Rock Lake, and then there's Penn, and then there's. We used to go there with Kyler too. There was some good all along the
Porcupines.
the east shore. The east shore was all sand beach. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
Also, though, they don't know where they are. They don't care where they are. Oh, Angel, there's just neighbors. It's like the Red Green Show. I hear the chainsaw. All right, so Peter Breeson. So I'm doing terrible with the names here. I love to see something about weekend or longer trips with a very, very short portage. Well, don't we all? Don't we all want to only travel 2 hours and then actually have limited portage to catch lots of fish and see no one? But but he's concerned because his wife wants to go out and he doesn't want to make it a slog, right?
Yeah. So, and that's a great request to get people introduced, having a good time, enjoying themselves, as opposed to going, this is horrible, I'm never doing this again.
And they will never do it again. If you take them on a bad trip the first time, no. I mean, we go to it all depends where this person lives, obviously, but let's say they live in the urban area of Toronto, whatever. There's the Haliburton Waterway Trails, Herb and Gun. You go to a lot.
Yeah.
Right? I go there a lot. It's really easy. Nunakani in there, the Kawartha Highlands, Bottle Sucker, if you can get the beach campsite, but it's busy. And that's a problem too. These places are going to be busy. Like that answer or that question is a very difficult one, because also I don't really want to tell you where those places are, but everybody knows about them too when you get there. So don't go on a long weekend and go to Bottle Sucker Lake and the Kawarthas. Well, you never get a say. Right?
Well, many of these parks and even the areas that are close to civilization, you have to book, and you need to book well in advance. Otherwise, if you just decide to go at the spur of the moment, there may not be any place open for you. So yeah. So look at those when you're doing your homework. Look for places that you can start your trip, and your campsites are going to be on that same lake, or they're going to be only 1 or 2 short portages away from that lake. If you're taking folks that are new, or have mobility issues, or that you want to make it a good experience for them, especially if they're just starting out.
Yeah, and things outside the box too, because you look at this river. I mean, that's a river route. I wouldn't take that as a very first trip, but the very end of it, there's that section of flat water that no whitewater person even thinks of staying because they're doing it for the river. So I've actually gone from the exit and paddle upstream on the Petawawa on that elongated lake.
Yeah.
Good muskie fishing, actually good walleye fishing, and good sand beaches.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't even tell you about that, but that's a really kind of hidden gem. So think outside the box for that. The other places too. Go to Frontenac, the Frontenac, North Frontenac Park area, where it is still Crown land, but the municipality now has managed it and managed it really quite well. There's wardens to come and check to make sure you're supposed to be there on the site. So Crotch Lake was my favorite. Big Gull Lake, no, I can't pronounce the other name of the lake. But anyway, there's a series of lakes there that you just go, and you know you have a site because you've booked that site. That's a really good thing, especially with kids. Like, you know you have the site. You don't have to go paddling around the entire Crotch Lake looking for it. So.
Yeah, so check out, the parks like Algonquin, Killarney, even the top end of Killarney, Panache.
Panache, yeah,
Panache
that's
Lake.
a gem.
You paddle to sites without any portages there, and it's a longer drive from the south. Not so much if you're in Sudbury, but that might be a place that's available and check the boxes.
Yeah, if you even look at that place, so you look at the north end. You and I volunteered for a couple of years to paddle around there to look for the old canoe routes because they're going to extend the Killarney Park. And you had Little Bear, you had Panache, you had all those little lakes in there. Even Great Mountain Lake, which is very difficult to get in from the south end. It's so easy to get in from Panache. I shouldn't even be saying that, but I mean, that's a beautiful lake, and there's a little limited portages. And Kyle loved that lake, and she was really young when we did that. Even looking at that area too of Sudbury, you've got Onaping Lake, you've got Scotia Lake, and then Temagami Lake as well. Wiskina, I'm not pronouncing that proper, but that lake around there. Lady Evelyn in Temagami, especially the south panel of the islands, you're in Oasis there.
Yeah.
There's no portage. Well, there's one from Latchford Bridge,
Yeah,
right?
but one small.
Yeah. So, no, it's endless places.
And Massasauga Park
Yeah.
is along, tucked into the islands and the shoreline of Georgian Bay, and has some like you can paddle there without portages or minimal portages to get into some of the lakes that are very adjacent.
That's a great place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, you book your site so you know you're going to get the site when you get there, right?
Yeah.
Even you and I, when I took you on the Venus Link and you wanted to kill me, so next year you designed the trip, and we went down the
coast of Georgian Bay.
Yeah, from the Key Harbor all the way to near Perry Sound, and the first 3/4 of it, we didn't really see too many people.
No, that's. But again, that's a little step up from. You want to be in your intermediate paddling skills, or more, not your beginner, because it's a big lake body of water and it can kick up quickly. So,
Yeah, especially you the idea. Remember you had that idea to go out. What were the islands?
Oh, it was the McCoys.
I was terrified, absolutely terrified. Well, it's okay, Kevin. It's calm.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a little bit of terrification.
You get halfway
Is that a
across,
real
you
word?
don't see land anywhere. It's just water. Okay, we're all right, Kevin. All right. So Robert Hensler, considerations in both routes, finding routes for someone with mobility issues.
Oh, there you go. So, we kind of touched on this a little bit already.
Same idea, like less portaging or no portaging, and then and think outside the box to find places where people don't go generally.
Yeah, and most public launches, whether that's say in the North Frontenac paddling area, or the Haliburton Highlands water trails, or even the provincial parks, they've either got docks to help with launching, or good boat ramps, that sort of thing, or beach areas, and then looking for some beach campsites are easier to land on, and but again, those short portage areas that we were talking about earlier for some of the new to canoeing folks.
Yeah, so when I did guide people with mobility issues. In fact, even wheelchair people in canoes for a job years ago. Raven Lake in the Haliburton Waterway was a place we'd all go to because all the campsites were very low. There was no cliff faces, whatever. What was the others? We actually did Crotch Lake near Booth Lake in Algonquin.
Right.
because of that lowland put in. And
Yeah.
then you just paddle under the bridge and you got this big lake and islands and really nice. So, there's places for you. And also, too, maybe you want to give a call to whoever, whether it's Ontario Parks and the park board, and say, hey, this is my issue. And, make them work for their money.
Poor parks people. You've got it so tough.
So, Craig, hey guys, I reckon we are the same age-ish, and I have some back issues. That's never happened to me. I was wondering about
Bring a wheelbarrow.
I have chronic back issues, and he's had to deal with it. I was wondering about suggesting a 4 to 5 day canoe trip with no or minimal portages. I'm in North Bay. So I would say one for sure I did last year was the West Bay of Lake Nipissing. It's in my, the route is in my top 70 canoe route that just came out. And it's an oasis full of Crownland Islands. Easy access. There's a couple of places to put in, but the government one is pretty easy. It's got a dock there. And it's your oasis. Like, you got the West Bay of all these islands, but then you can go out to Lake Nipissing, and then you can loop around into the French River, the Upper French River. The Upper French River is a great place for non-portaging.
Yeah.
Go in from Docus and all the bays to the North Shore. The boats don't go in there.
Yeah.
I mean the big boats.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're in North Bay, well, good luck. He's living in a nice place than we are, I'm telling you.
Yeah. Or Panache Lake, or even some of the spots you can access along the Mattawa River, and you don't have to do, like go all the way down. You just stay in that area and then come back out where you started.
Mattawa's an easy river. It's really good. Oh gosh, the Ottawa River. Temiskaming down to Mattawa. I've done that. No portaging. Then from Mattawa all the way down to Driftwood Provincial Park. No portaging. The campsites are not maintained, and they're not that easy to find right now because nothing's being maintained. But the big boats aren't in there anymore because nobody has money for gas. So that if you're living in North Bay, that's an oasis, especially Temiskaming itself, and then down to Mattawa.
Or Lake Temagami even.
Yeah.
For you've got a little more less big water. Not so much of a wind sweep like Temiskaming.
Yeah, Temiskaming can be pretty evil. It's a pretty shallow lake, that's the problem. Also, Wicksteed Lake.
Oh.
Now, it can get busy with anglers and, when walleye opens up, whatever, but it's a huge lake with tons of islands, and it's Crown land, so free for everybody, except, for Canadian citizens. Ron's story. I know you, Ron. I know you. No portages or short portage route. Well, we've gone over that. But do you have any others ideas? Everybody's asking about non-portage routes. Maybe we should write a guidebook of non-portage routes.
Can you imagine if there was a book for sale? I would buy that.
By the way, I did ask my publisher to do that, and he goes, we're not right now, Kevin. We're too busy with doing the top 70, whatever, and maybe in the future. But because I'm self-publishing some books now too. Interesting.
Well, film at 11.
There's some lakes I wanted to do, like Lake Abitibi, Little Abitibi as well.
Yeah.
I've done the rivers, but not that lake, and there's tons of campsites there.
Okay.
We've looked at other lakes too that we could go to. Right?
Yes. I'm going to take you somewhere this year.
He's always doing this. All right, Bob McKenzie. After years of Algonquin trips, want to explore Temagami. Any favorite routes you suggest? Well, Lady Evelyn, Temagami. Lady Evelyn River, I would say, is most scenic, but it's not easy portaging. It's like a giant has put marbles on the portage, like these big boulders.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I would say the Lady Evelyn River, Lady Evelyn Lake. And look at Hat Wilson's guide. That is the book, the Bible of Temagami. That's his new edition. Right, and
the Chiniguchi.
Chiniguchi, yeah. Chiniguchi is a fantastic. That is the south end of Temagami. That's how they used to get into Temagami before the train went up there back in the day. Back in the day. Back in the day. Where's my walker?
Hey, you clouds!
Get off my lawn!
Yeah.
Okay, Scouter Mike. How to predict if Vanishing Pond will vanish? Oh, that's Vanishing Pond. That's up by Sunbeam. Yeah. So that I know that route. It's if it's dry, you can't go through that area. You have to take another portage, which isn't pleasant. Well, how do you know that? You call the park. Or actually, I wouldn't call the park. I would call the outfitters. I would actually call what's name? Luxton Outfitters. Gord Baker.
Oh,
Yeah.
Of Algonquin
Yeah.
Outfitters.
Just
Gord
when you
Baker.
phone Gord Baker or email him and say, Kevin and Andy said you can check water levels for you. So he'll go out of his house, put his finger in the water, and then come back and tell you. Yeah. No, he'll know. To be quite honest, always ask the locals. To be quite honest about water levels.
Yeah, whether that's or even this time early in the year, some people plan their trips and the ice isn't off. So phone the outfitters about the ice conditions too.
They'll look out their window. Yep, the ice is still on.
Yeah.
How are the black flies? Well, wait a minute. I'll put my head out the window and tell you. All right. Andrew Elkins. For the Americans. Oh, I like this question. For the Americans, how has the remote area border crossing changed? So do you know about that? Have you ever done? I've done that. I've done it from the United States into Canada, which confused the Americans. They're like, why are you, as a Canadian, coming into the United States, go back into Canada? Can we see your papers and go against the wall?
Yeah. Yeah.
I did look into it. So I did some research, and yes, now because of COVID, it was closed, but now it's open.
Okay.
But it's going to take a lot longer to get the paperwork back. So plan for that.
Oh, yeah,
So if
okay.
you're American going into Canada, which is a lot of Americans do, 94% of Quetico use is American use coming in from the south end, from Boundary Waters. You can now do that. You don't need proof of vax. But you need to do the paperwork online. You can do it online, but it's going to take you longer to get the reply.
Okay.
I asked,
And that's
they
for
responded.
a remote border crossing.
Yeah, so it's called the RABC. There's a website. Just
So
go to Canada
basically when
Border
you're
Services.
paddling across the border as opposed to driving through at a normal entry point.
Yeah, so if you're portaging into, with drugs and things like that, you need to know these things.
Arrest him.
All right, Brent, how's the brook trout fishing on the Petawawa River coming in from Daisy? Why would I tell you the answer to that? I will tell you that.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, everywhere.
If you like suckers.
That's one of my favorite trips I've done for years, since high school, actually. You go down the Petawawa, go into a little trout, big trout, or white trout, and then go up into Wolf or something. I forget. You go up through the big grassy bay.
Oh, yeah.
And do a big loop, and you only got one bad portage. It's 900 meters. The rest are all 200, 300, and you've got a nice 5-day loop.
Nice.
So the brook trout fishing was phenomenal back in the day. Back in the day.
You clouds.
Yeah, and what would happen is it's not really a river per se at that time. You're not running rapids. You
It's
would
a
stop.
creek, yeah.
Yeah, you would stop and then and cast a line in there. Grassy Bay, by the way, has good brookies, and people don't know that because it's a swamp. They think they're not there.
Don't tell
Oh,
them.
yeah, that's right, but they're there. And if you want to see a moose, my record moose sighting, 29 moose in Grassy Bay.
Holy.
Yeah, the same moose kept ahead of me all the time. But it's good brook trout fishing. What I have found in the last 10 years, especially the last 5 years, is because of global warming, I'm going to call it, is that water is warming up. So bass haven't moved in yet, but there's a lot of extra vegetation. So the brook trout fishing is not as good as it was 20 years ago. But and the thing that you do on there is you cast below the rapids. You got 5 or 6 casts. You'll get a bunch of brookies, and then they'll shut down. You can fish there all for an hour or two. They're not going to hit, and just move on.
Yeah.
Okay, right. It's like David Letterman. Didn't he do that? No, it wasn't. No, who was it? Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Didn't put down.
The Oracle.
Yeah. All right, Alicia. Now we're talking about gear and general tip or tripping questions. What would be the most appropriate canoe to do the Blood Lane River route?
Ooh.
Someone else's.
One that floats. Let's start with one with no holes.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a number of runnable rapids on the Blood Vein, but there's also portages, I believe, around all of those rapids. So, if you're going to run it in whitewater, get a canoe that is shaped for whitewater or general paddling, like a prospector design or something like that. And if you're, rather than say a very flat keeled, sharp bow and stern canoe that is, you would see, paddling the waters of Quetico and the lakes there. So
Like not an asymmetrical boat, a symmetrical boat, right? Like a prospector.
yeah,
I wouldn't even, if you're solo, I would even take a prospector. I wouldn't take a cruiser type boat.
right.
Like there's lots of whitewater.
But you could, if you're not going to do any of that whitewater, and you're going to portage everything, you can probably do it in any canoe. But you're probably better off getting something that is maneuverable. Because a lot of times, even if you don't want to run something, just being able to maneuver quickly and get off the water and hit the portage you need a boat you can maneuver well for that.
You can tell you paddle with me on rivers. Andy, I don't want to do that rapid.
So there's a lot of whitewater styles of canoes, with some basically rocker, which is curvature upwards at the bow and stern of the canoe. That gives you a bit more maneuverability. The material that the canoe is made out of, older canoes, whitewater ones used to be made of Royalex.
Yeah, if you can find an old Royalex or ABS, what they call it, that would be a great one to do with the blood vein, but they don't make them anymore. So tough stuff. It would be fine for that river. It's a more voluminous river. And remember the First Nations paintings on Ardery Lake?
Yeah. So
that was amazing.
So yeah, that Bloodvein's a fabulous area. It begins in Western Ontario, flows across the Manitoba border, and then empties out into Lake Winnipeg.
Yeah, and that's a safe lake to paddle. That place, there was a guidebook called Mantario. It was all about Manitoba and Ontario canoe routes, all in white shell.
Oh, yeah. Cool.
Yeah. All right. Sorry. Alicia said we would only want to do easy class 2s or less rapids. So the blood vein, yeah.
So still, if you're going to do some class 2s and easier rapids, still get a maneuverable boat. So a little bit of rocker. I would go 16 feet or 17 feet. I would go 4 to 36 inches wide, and a good deep boat, 14 and a half plus inches of depth. And you probably don't, with that kind of class, you don't need a spray skirt. You might get a couple of splashes in, that sort of thing, but nothing drastic.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, Alex, Merwin, what are your qualifications for choosing the best canoeing partner? Don't go with him.
Yeah, don't go with me. No, I think someone who, this kind of goes back to that, what's your goal of going on the trip?
Yeah.
And if your goals are complementary, they don't have to be the exact same, but if they complement each other so that, we're going to, satisfy my need to, paddle new areas, and then we're going to have enough time to fish to satisfy, my partner's need, or whatever, or there's going to be great campsite, whatever. If both people are happy, that's the kind of partners or group members you want to look for. If you can't stand, waiting to fish every once in a while, or waiting to, and a lot of to do something, whether that's videotape or take notes or photograph or who knows, or even there's simple things like how early in the day do you get up versus everybody else? Because if you're the last one out of bed, or you have to wait 3 hours for everybody else to get out of bed, there's going to be some tension, or you're paddling till dark and you don't care about making camp in the dark and dinner, or vice versa. You can't stand that. Like, those are the sort of things you should sort out before ideally before you go on trip. But often you don't really think about some of these things until you're on the trip and they're happening.
Oh, I know. I mean, a good example. A lot of people ask why doesn't Speedoman and Ashley and you and I paddle together? It's because different canoe trips. Ashley wants to fish all the time. That's all he wants to do, right? Whereas you only want to catch a fish to eat it. So that's why we don't trip together. Totally different trip ideas, right? But we've been on trip, and I won't mention names, but we were on a very long trip in Quetico when I was working at Quetico book. And some people joined us, and there was a marathon type person with us that wanted to go the first day. And we're like, we're out for 28 days. We're not in any rush, buddy. And we stopped. We're like, good luck to you, and left them. And they kept going. And we did not paddle with them anymore.
Well, yeah, and that's we never had any of those discussions ahead of time,
No.
and that's what can happen.
Yeah. It was a bad trip.
It was a good trip.
Well,
I
once
got
I left.
that over after day one, and
Yeah.
see ya, chum.
And his partner wanted to stay with us because we were eating better, we were taking it easy, having a good time, and he was eating gruel. He paddled to midnight the first night. All right, so Tom Wasson, presume you'll mention a float plan. So what do we do to make sure everybody knows where we're going, and how do we keep safe?
I tell Mummy.
Yeah, it's true. We tell whoever at home a float plan, where we're going to be. I bring my spot device and a sat phone. Someone did mention online that they put all this and put it on their vehicle in case something happens, but I wouldn't do that because that means everybody knows where you are, and then they'll break into your vehicle. But
Well, yeah, if you're registering with a park or an organization, they will have your itinerary and your, start and finish dates. If you're going into areas where that's not, like crown areas, you can leave that plan with the local OPP office or the local natural resources office. But the OPP would probably be better because they're in the coming in and getting people business more so, say, than natural resources is. They're just, if you've got a tree with you, they'll come and get you. But
good definition. In the day before spot devices, when I was paddling, especially solo, I would not change my route because they wouldn't know where to find the body, right?
yeah.
So
yeah.
I had a sat phone at times, but also there was times where I'd get to a fishing lodge and use their radio phone and then phone in my change of plans.
But yeah, there's lots of technology nowadays that not only can you buy, but you can rent. So that would be another way of keeping a lifeline to the outside world if you need that in the unfortunate incident while you're out there.
Yeah, there was a gentleman years ago that was doing the Punkasaw Coast, and he had a float plan, but when he finished, he didn't tell anybody he finished. He went home, and then they were like doing a search for him, right?
Boy.
So yes, do it. Tell everybody where you're going, but then also tell everybody when you're home
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah, check in and check out.
Yeah. Oh my lord. There's a lot of questions. Sean Rowley. Oh, we'll talk about a lot of questions. The guy never stops talking. I was traveling with him. I talk a lot. This man never stopped. We drove to Lansing, Michigan. Took us 5 hours. There wasn't even a sentence period. There was just continual blah, 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 blah.
He has a gift.
Actually, he's good on the radio. Paddling Adventure Radio, if you haven't seen it, I listen to podcasts all the time. But he has some good questions. All right.
He has a lovely wife, too. Hello.
Actually, yeah, far much better than him. How do you divide up your camp chores? You rotate chore dailies, or do you rotate chores daily on longer trips? Yeah, what are our chores? How do we do that? I basically do everything, don't I?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I can't get him to put my chair up. So I just get my chair out, I sit in it, and then watch him,
It is like a machine, to be quite honest. We paddle together so much. We do have our routine chores. I generally put the tent up. You put the tarp up. You're better at that than I am. And actually, that's the thing too. Like whatever you're better at, but it's good to switch it up now and then because it's also like bow and stern. I think the bow person should always so the bow person should at times paddle the stern with a map. Because you don't want the person in the bow not with a map, because if something happened to the person in the stern with the map, Well, what the bow person is going to have to get you out, so they're going to have to know how to paddle, know how to navigate the map. So chores are one thing, but skills should be equalized, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, but just make it fair, and unless unless you have a lovely partner who you love doing everything for, then go to town. You know.
Well, with Christine and I, like, I love cooking, and she loves cooking.
Yeah.
So we'll switch, but I gotta say, I prefer to cook out there. I think it's because when I guided, that's what my job was, is everybody leave me alone.
or this is going to burn.
Yeah, yeah. Hang the food barrel. Like, if you want someone to do that, Tim Foley, Kenny Outdoor Equipment, you want to do it right, let him do it.
Yeah.
The guy can, like, it's like a genius, right?
No, that's so. Yeah, keep in mind that you should be looking to help out at least an equal fashion, and don't be bent out of shape if, like, you're the best person at the food barrel or the tarp or whatever, and you know that becomes your main chore. But yeah, look to help out. I remember going from paddling with the family where I was doing like everything while mommy was taking care of the kids to paddling with other adults like Gavin or whatnot, and where the chores got like divvied up, and that was kind of like, wow, I have spare time I never thought of.
It's crazy.
But yeah, like if someone's doing the cooking, then another person is doing the cleaning up afterwards. Split up those chores. But if there's anyone named Sean on your trip, then actually they should get all the chores.
The great thing about wood harvesting is because of what I teach and what I did in forestry, I can identify good dry species of wood. So, but it's subconscious. I go out and get the wood, drag it in, and then Tim harvests it all because, like, he loves an axe and saw.
Yeah.
And then you as well. But we don't really chat about that. We just do it.
Yeah.
And by the time we get to the campsite, I really want to get away from you guys anyway. So.
Bye, Kevin. Hopefully we'll see you again.
Okay, Sean has another question.
Yay,
Surprise,
Sean.
surprise. How do you assess a new paddler's paddling partner's experience? For example, how do you tell someone no when you don't trust their skill set? That's a tough one.
No, it is. You got to.
Oh,
Ooh, you got a bonus.
protein.
No, I would start by thinking about, okay, how did you sort out who was going to make decisions for before or during the trip? Did you have a leader, or are you going to do it by your group decision-making process? Because I'm assuming he means, okay, you're on trip and you come to a spot and somebody wants to run this rapid, whereas, people are second-guessing that. Should we portage or what? So use your group decision method at that point to deal with it and say, look, tactfully as best you can, sorry, but the group or the leader doesn't think this is a good idea at this time. So, for the purposes of the group safety, we're taking this direction.
Yeah, you can see that out there. I was on a trip years ago where a colleague of mine at the college, he would teach map and compass, right, to the students. Then we're out in Lake Superior and fog dropped and a storm was coming and he's trying to get a heading and he had no clue how to do that. And we knew that just by physically watching him. And our assumption was that he knew because he had taught it.
Yeah. Now, if you're before you go on trip and you're trying to find out, hey, there's a new person, I wonder how experienced they are. They tell me they're experienced. Well, I would get them to describe the trips they've been on before, and the number of them, the locations, the type, the duration, how many people were on in the group. All that will give you a good sense of, oh, okay, they've been to some pretty challenging places, or they not really, or whatever. Maybe they've only ever done trips with an outfitter that did everything for them, whatever. But getting that description of their experience will give you some insight into that. And I remember I was I lived up north of Superior. I was heading down to do a whitewater trip, just a day trip on the Ottawa River, and I was renting a canoe that I was picking up. But I was making arrangements, and on the phone, the outfitter said, "Well, we don't just rent our whitewater canoes to anybody. They get stuck in the rapids. We still got a canoe in a rapid on the Canoe." And I said, "Yeah, well, I get it." And so I want to ask you some questions to find out about your experience. I was like, okay. You know what? This whitewater, describe a ferry. And I'm like, well, do you mean an upstream ferry or a downstream ferry? She's like, oh, yeah, you're fine.
That was Bill Swift Senior, wasn't it?
I think it might have been.
You sound just like him.
It probably was then, yeah.
They called him Mean Dude. The Meanest Link is called after Meanest Link because of him.
Well, he was just doing his job, but yeah, he wasn't a warm, loving kind of person on the phone, you know.
It'd be great if you answered, what do you mean, the ones that float in the air, the ferry, you know?
Yes, the ones I see in the forest.
All right. So we've got a whole bunch of questions still to go, but they're mostly on gear. So I think what we should do is do part 2.
Okay.
So we've done this about trip planning and group dynamics, which is solid. I've got to fly my T, so I'm going to switch to something else. And we're going to cut, and we're going to get into some gear and skill questions.
Okay, well, do you want me to run through my magic list first?
Yes.
Just kind of like a recap about canoe trip planning.
All right.
Okay? Think about the reasons why you're going out there, what you want from the trip, including what you want to do, what you don't want to do. Think about who's going with you and what they want out of the trip, and make sure your reasons are compatible. Otherwise, you may not want to go on the trip with those folks. Think about, and while you're having those discussions, find out about food allergies and food sensitivities, because that's going to come into play.
I'm allergic to scotch.
Yes, no scotch for monsieur. Get the dates established early in everyone's calendar, because if you don't plan it, it's not going to happen. And then think about where you will go that aligns with the group's goals, okay? Because and respecting the comfort levels of the people who are on the trip with you, and match the experience with those particular paddling destinations, so you don't have somebody white knuckling their way through a whole trip. So then do the homework, find out different destinations and that fit the group goals. There's lots of web and book resources. There may be even some canoe book authors out there.
I can't believe I didn't bring my own book on the show.
Yeah, maybe you should flash up a picture of your latest book at this point. Okay. Obtain information from provincial parks, that sort of thing, and then get group agreement on where you're going to go. You know, if everyone's thumbs up, that's great. But also think about plan B at this point, just in case plan A falls apart for an unknown reason.
Yeah.
Make your transportation arrangements to get to and from, and that includes any rental gear that you might have to get lined up as part of the trip. Get your reservations. Say those would be for the park if you're going to a park, or anywhere that requires reservations, or rentals, or even your transportation. Like if you're renting a car or getting train tickets in, or whatever it happens to be, you know, do that. Obtain the specific maps for that paddling area and information about your route. So you're going to need that for navigation, campsites, portages, water levels, fire bans, points of interest, all that stuff. Then get an equipment list together. So, and this is a good maybe segue into where we'll dive into equipment a bit more, but when you're doing that, it's got to be tuned to the type of trip you're taking. That the one person was asking about a trip on the blood vein versus another trip, which might be just in lake country. And then turn that equipment list into a checklist for when you're actually pulling things together, and include both common group equipment and but also personal gear. And then confirm who's bringing what.
Yeah. That's important.
And communicate it. You're on for this. You're on for that. I'm bringing this. That determine the menu and who is bringing what common food items, and communicate the menu to make sure that there aren't any allergies or sensitivities. And then, like I said earlier, determine how group decisions are going to be made. Is it going to be by a leader, or by a majority, or unanimous agreement, or some other method, flipping a coin, whatever. And then get the equipment gathered and the food prepared, check the equipment is working, and perhaps make the new menu items at home first to make sure you know how to make it successfully before you're out there and everyone's hungry. So, and then keep in contact with your group as the dates get closer to make sure that everyone is still available and on track. And then let the trip unfold, and enjoy the ups and downs that will happen as part of any trip. There'll be great moments, there'll be stinker moments, but those will be all part of the bigger memory later on. Just keep your good attitude and enjoy.
Yeah. I got to say that sometimes planning a trip is better than the trip itself.
Yeah, you can't control some things like the weather, the bugs, whatever. You can prepare with your equipment as best as possible, so that you're not surprised and you can deal with whatever gets thrown at you.
That's excellent.
Excellent.
That's why all of our trips go 100% as planned.
Yeah, until I lose my list.
You do live off your list.
My happy list.
All right, so we're going to cut, we're going to refresh, and we're going to start part 2 with some other tips and tricks and also some gear stuff. Right. It's a long video. We're getting a sunburn. It's the first spring sun. All right.
Good to hear you're getting a sunburn.